Back in 98, 99, there was one group, 1/3 of us. The American dream is alive, and they defined it in traditional kinds of material terms. A home in the suburbs, a better job, a piece of property, owning my own business, becoming a CEO, big swimming pool, the dream vacation, whatever. But at the same time, there was another third who were saying, that's not what the American dream is about to me. Not the traditional materialism, and that's what I call the first group. But rather people were saying, yeah, it's very much alive, but to me, what it means is the opportunity to lead a genuine, fulfilling, authentic kind of life. I want to do something that's better than me, bigger than me. I want to do something that makes a mark for my family or my community or the larger world. I want to live a life that's genuine. So as I tracked these numbers over the next decade into writing this book, what I discovered is that the secular spiritualists, that I call them, actually grew and continue to grow, and they are now 43% of us. And the traditional materialists, thank God we have them. That's where the inventors and the entrepreneurs and the developers, the creators, to a great degree, come from. They're 26% of us. And then to carry this forward, there's about 15, 20% I call the deferred dreamers. Yeah, the American dream exists, but not for me. For future generations, perhaps. And then there are the dreamless dead, about 15% of us. And unfortunately, too many single moms in that crowd, and minorities as well. But this secular spiritualism, this desire to live a life that's real and authentic and makes a mark, I've discovered that there's 4 sources to this group. The first source is the group I began talking about. The numbers of Americans that work at a job that pays less, which at the time that I wrote and edited the final manuscript was now 27% of us. In this great recession, it's reached 30%. But I think that may be artificial or inflated. We'll see what happens once this recession is over. But 1 in 4, what's it mean? Working at a job that pays less, it means having less, knowing and understanding that it's more permanent, making choices, understanding that to a great degree that old American dream doesn't exist. Perhaps maybe it does for my children and wanting the best for them. But very importantly, what it means is kind of an Elizabeth Kubler-Ross experience. That angry middle class, we call him the angry white male, went from anger and bitterness and frustration to acquiescence and ultimately to readjustment. If it's not going to happen, I still need to dream about something. And I need to readjust what my life priorities are. And that's what's going on. And I call it a secular spiritualism because it has less to do with God. We are already a religious nation. It has a whole lot more to do with introspection. This is a new consumer. This is a discerning consumer. This is a consumer that says, I have a limited dollar. And I am not defined by buying cheap. I am defined by getting the best that I can for that dollar. And it is the discerning retailer, the discerning arts council, It's the discerning whomever that understands that motivation. There's a second group, a second source of this secular spiritualism. It's all the way over on the other end of the spectrum economically. It is those who have made it, who've achieved success by any financial definition you can come up with, who in the last decade and a half slowly and steadily have come to the conclusion, I want to get out of this race. I've made it, but I just don't subscribe to the notion that he who has the most toys at the end wins, because it has nothing at all to do with my fulfillment. I don't need the next iteration of the iPhone. I got one 6 months ago, didn't do a goddamn thing for me. I don't need a 3,000 square foot addition to my home. I've already got 4,000 square feet, and I can't even enjoy that. Slow it down. There is an active and an engaged simplification movement in this country, and it is not a product of this Great Recession. This Great Recession is merely accelerating a trend that we caught a decade and a half and then a decade ago. Make no mistake about it. These are people who are saying, I just don't want to be defined by what I own, how much I make, where I work. I want to be defined by something larger. I don't want my tombstone to say, he worked in a cubicle for 37 years. I want to do something larger and more meaningful. There's a third source of the secular spiritualism. Us, baby boomers. I am an aging baby boomer myself. I call us Woodstockers. I was there. It was nasty. It was a testimonial to my generation's preoccupation with self-indulgence, essentially. And that's pretty much who we were. So much was made out of the post-war baby boom, and we internalized it. And we were important. And the high point of our lives, and I find myself still saying this myself, we changed the world when I was 19. We stopped a war. We marched for civil rights. Well, it's tough when you're 61 and the high point of your life was when you were 19. I'm telling you, there's a change that's taking place among us Woodstockers. We've been trying so hard to recapture our youth for many years. We're the ones that made L'Oreal necessary, right? I'm worth it. I love my guy friends. You know, the guys I look at with the turkey neck, you know, and the old hands, with the tastefully cordovan hair color, you know, we define just for men. I've got a buddy on his third wife, and every time I see him, I say to myself, God, your fourth wife is in middle school right now. But that's changing. Because listen to this one demographic alone.